Bunnies don't give gifts. This is a strange first game for the player, with gameplay as basic as it gets. You're required to repeatedly press the same buttons consistently for 20 seconds. Well, the presentation of the level is fine, but once you understand they're all reused locations from a much better prototype, it feels less inspired. 2 out of 5.
That was the minigame? Oh, we are in for a time, aren't we? Oh boy. Okay, as a guy who has way too much playtime in Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, this one felt immediately familiar to me, because shaking the Wiimote and nunchuck is literally all you do. The presentation is cute and all, but that's really the only thing setting it apart here. At least in Mario and Sonic, you could make Bowser or Dr. Eggman do the 100-meter dash. 1 out of 5.
Call me basic, but I have a soft spot for rapid movement or rapid pressing minigames. I don't care so much when they're overused, and I totally see the concern over the rest of the game when it starts like this, but personally I'm into it. It's short, snappy, and actually features Rayman defeating a rabbit, which is something not all of the minigames do. Nice enough environments, albeit hard to really stop and enjoy given the speed of the game. Playing this on the Xbox 360 version meant that I had to rapidly press the left and right triggers as fast as possible. Does that make it more enjoyable than the original Wii controls? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies don't know what to do with cows. You know, it's a bit odd how the game immediately starts in some of its most grim, uninviting environments. Like they had trouble reminding themselves that this is a party game now. My guess is they made these 2 minigames first, which would explain why Rayman's presence is being emphasized. This also happens to have one of the more in-depth intro scenes to a minigame. I enjoyed this one. It's like something you'd play at a carnival. Just spin, then release at max power to get the best distance. 4 out of 5.
The sound of the cow is killing me. Wait a minute. This is just a hammer throw event from Mario and Sonic. The cow's name is even Daisy.
Hi, I'm Daisy. No!
Starting to notice a trend here, but honestly, the presentation does actually elevate this one quite a bit. Really like how the cow's mooing sounds like proximity voice chat. As expected, the challenge is to keep swinging consistently, while also watching for when the cow lines up with the middle of the screen to throw as straight as possible. This one's not bad, but hopefully the next game isn't sports related for a change. 3 out of 5.
Cow tossing. My favourite pastime. I'm not a particular fan of this minigame, but not due to its premise. I think it's a fun idea. Spin as hard as you can and then fire the cow like a hammer toss at the Olympics. My problem is that on the Xbox 360 version of the game, this will be a recurring point I bring up, sadly by the way, it's just not fun to control. Spinning the thumbstick over and over is not nearly as pleasant as swinging a Wiimote, and then trying to time your button press so you don't get screwed over by the unfortunate input lag is even less pleasant. Again, fun idea, but in practice on the Xbox version, I just can't get into it. 2 out of 5.
Bunnies like to stuff themselves. I love the countdown sound effects in this one. The Rabbids are actually quite funny when filled with rage. Here you'll test your precision skills by tracing over various food items, which then spawn in for this desperate, adrenaline-fueled Rabbid. I like the shift in expectation where I appear to be drawing a sandwich, only for it to be a cinder block. He doesn't mind, I guess. Play until the candle runs out, which lasts roughly a minute. 5 out of 5 on this one.
When I asked for more variety, this wasn't exactly what I had in mind, but at least it's a unique take on a motion-controlled drawing minigame. I do feel the Wii Remote is pretty precise for this, and the candle being a timer is a nice touch. That Rabbid too, he's a little too excited to get stuffed. Unfortunately, this one gets docked a whole point for using the most obnoxious highlighter sound effect possible. Whoever picked that is either immune to high-pitched sounds or a special kind of evil. Glad this one only lasts a minute. 3 out of 5.
This minigame is one of the first ones that comes to mind when I think of Rayman Raving Rabbids. That's not to say it's the best or even the most memorable, it's just a very good, simple, fits the job description kind of minigame. On the Xbox 360 port, the controls aren't as good as you would find on the Wii. Using the Wiimote's pointing controls to draw food for the Rabbid makes a lot more sense than the thumbstick and the right bumper buttons on Xbox. And while that does make it a tad annoying at times, it's still a fun enough minigame and I'm glad it's there. Shout out to the Rabbid that'll eat literally anything, by the way. probably the first time I ever truly felt seen in any media. 3 out of 5.
Bunnies are fantastic dancers. Alright, we've got a rhythm game. Press the correct button when a rabbit aligns with the stars on the left or right of the podium. There are 9 waves set to the length of an entire licensed song. This time it's Miserloo by Dick Dale and his Deltones. No, it's not Black Eyed Peas. Those low-poly Rabbids in the background are terrifying. I don't find these minigames very fun. They demand more pizzazz for their running length. 2 out of 5.
You know what? I honestly think the motion controls elevate this minigame tenfold. A common misstep I see in rhythm minigames is completely avoiding the rhythm altogether. You know what I'm talking about, the kind of minigame you'd find in a licensed movie tie-in game where none of the beats in the rhythm minigame actually match up with the music. Fortunately, that is not at all the case here, and swinging the Wii Remote and Nunchuck combo feels pretty natural since each one only handles one side. Fun music track too. Looking forward to seeing the future versions of this one. 4 out of 5.
I love a good rhythm game, but I don't love this, though. Playing on an Xbox, whoa, I mentioned it again, means that the controls, like the PC version, are simply just a button press. Left trigger when a rabbit is to the left of Rayman, and right trigger when a rabbit is to the right of Rayman. It's a simple premise, the music is always kind of fun, especially in this level, and like a lot of rhythm games from the 2000s, it doesn't really function as intended. There's a slight discrepancy between the beats of the music and when the Rabbids actually appear. That's the only letdown for me. Bonus points though for this looking really flashy with some higher res Rabbids in the back for the Xbox version. 3 out of 5.
In case you didn't know, the player doesn't have to complete all the minigames in a day. Completing 3 is what the game considers qualification status for the final challenge, where you can then pass the big gate in the middle. If you do complete all the minigames in a day, you'll unlock a bonus like music for your jukebox or an optional new costume. This takes place in your cell where you can also revisit the day's minigames. In all my years of watching people play this game, I've never seen someone spend more than a few minutes in here. The most of its interest comes from how it evolves over time, which is a neat gimmick, but I don't know, this whole area feels underutilized.
It is pretty cool to be able to mix and match costumes. I've been told that they were initially designed to represent player abilities in the prototype, but in the final game, it's unfortunately just for cosmetics. Like Frame said, this area is largely pointless, though it is cool how they managed to use the costumes in the final game for something.
Bunnies have a soft spot for plungers. It was around this point as a kid when I got really confused with this game. We've had button mashers, skill tests, a rhythm game, and now FPS? Well anyways, these are a sort of day-ending final challenge for most of the game. The first time you play these, they're quite fun, especially if you know all the mechanics, like grabbing a rabbit to use as a meat shield, or launching it for combos. Awesome. To reload your plunger gun, on Wii you shake the nunchuck, on 360 you press the B button, and on PC you have to move your crosshair off-screen like a traditional light gun game. Yeah, I would have preferred a button, whatever. Now, I'd be here all day mentioning the little stuff, but here's one thing I wanted to mention. See these Rabbids playing cards? If I spare this one unaware Rabbid, it'll just sit there in confusion. And then this Rabbid here will just scream at me, I guess. There were some bizarre choices for this being the first FPS game. Your introductory power-up is the Broken Plunger? Yeah, great way of incentivizing us to avoid them. You do get a temporary Infinite Plunger power-up shortly after, but still. Overall, nice thematic elements here. Good music, goofy rabbit shooting fun. 4 out of 5.
Oh, good. Oh, perfect. They brought in the stereotypes too, just for fun. This was pretty good. I like how the game frames this as a rescue mission for one of Glowbox's many kids. The motion aiming is solid, nunchuck reloading generally works pretty well, and it's pretty easy to see the effort that was put into the stages as they were originally designed. Definitely is a shame that they're on rails, but at least they look good, and the Rabbids generally appear in places that make sense or require skill to hit. I like the Old West theme a lot, although I agree with Frame. It sucks we couldn't explore these places fully. Still, not a bad introduction to what is going to be a recurring minigame. Not bad at all. 4 out of 5. Wow! We got a plungar. Make the most of it. You want a plunger. Sure. I'm sure I will. What?
Shooting Rabbids is a big selling point of this game. It was first advertised as a sort of beat-em-up game anyway back in 2005, so finally getting to fight them head-on in this game was a good feeling. Unless you're playing on the Xbox 360, that is. Look, I promise, I'm not going to bring it up every single time. I've played this game on the Wii when I was younger, and I remember these minigames being a lot of fun. On the Xbox port though, it is way harder to control. I'm not sure what else could really be done to make these minigames not feel awkward, so it's less of an issue with Rayman Raving Rabbids, and more of a fundamental problem with on-rails shooters on an Xbox controller. Either way, this is still pretty fun. I always like that this iteration of the plunger shooting games has the ability to grapple the Rabbids using Rayman's hand on a chain. Raving Rabbids 2 and TV Party both have fewer features in their versions of the minigame, and that always has me missing this version. The setting is pretty fun for the first of these kinds of minigames. There's a lot of Rabbids and a ton of chaos. Not my favourite part of the game, but still good in my eyes. I'm not sure, but in this version of the game, Rayman seems to be in a different environment watching the Rabbids through a screen. Is this all a VR experience for him? Is he not really rescuing Glowbox's babies? Is Rayman just a terrible friend? 3 out of 5.
Unrelated, but this is when I decided to check out the locker room for myself and discovered the wearable costume pieces. And for some reason, I gave Rayman the grandma hair and nothing else. After a few in-game days, it was just too iconic to change to anything else. So in my playthrough, our hero becomes a grandparental figure in the baby Glowbox's lives, and now they all call him Rayma. Or at least that's my headcanon. Moving on.
Here in the cell, we can choose to pound the door to notify Sergey, who escorts us once again to the arena. Interesting how the door comment states, "Return to take more tests," alluding to Rayman being no more than a lab rat. It makes you wonder, what's the point of all this? Is there some hidden motive here? Probably not. I think the Rabbids are just bored. Bunnies never close doors. Close the repeatedly opening bathroom doors before the Rabbids notice. It's very fun to see how far you can get once you understand how everything works here. Playing this minigame with a PC mouse, if you're really good at it, has proven to be some of the most fun I've had out of this game. 5 out of 5.
Ugh. Okay, this one makes a little more sense on the Wii when you fully understand that the position of the doors doesn't matter at all. The only reason I passed this one is because Frame explained that you want to hit the Rabbids' heads instead of the doors, and then they'll pretty much close every time. The biggest problem is that the nunchuck is not nearly as precise as the Wii Remote or a button press, so it is extremely easy to fail this multiple times. It also doesn't help that there seems to be a bit of a cooldown mechanic if you fail to close a door, so it's very easy to start swinging wildly and panicking. Our difference in gameplay doesn't lie. This game is way more precise on PC and an absolute nightmare on the Wii. Wonder how many kids gave up on this one. 1 out of 5.
I'm a fan of this kind of minigame. The first 20 or 30 seconds are slow, you get into it, you get used to the controls and the goal, and then it gets hectic. I love it when there's so much going on and you have to keep on top of 3 or 4 active objectives. On the Xbox 360 this is functional enough, though I'm sure it's a lot more fun using a computer mouse. Even still, I like it a lot. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies can't jump. Wait, what? Yes, they can. Ah, it's literally just a game of jump rope. The atmosphere's pretty neat, but this is the definition of repetitive. Always cool to see that Nurgle creature. Here we've got a big boy, which I don't think we ever see again. 2 out of 5.
This one's fine, I guess. Pretty standard jump roping minigame, except you use the nunchuck instead of a regular button. Kind of annoying that the nunchuck has been known to register double inputs, and unfortunately we're going to be hearing that a lot in my playthrough, but if you don't swing it wildly in this minigame, it generally behaves. I guess they intended for the Rabbids appearing on screen and the occasional speed changes to be the challenge here. A little more annoying than anything else, but I still managed to finish this one in a few tries. 2 out of 5.
No, absolutely not. This is another case of the button presses, moment for action, and visuals each having a mind of their own. When it looks like you should jump, it's probably too late. When you work out when you should jump and do it then because of a little input lag, it's too late. In my experience playing this on the Xbox port, I found I was failing within the first 2 jumps most times, if I even got that far, because joining the skipping rope isn't particularly easy to achieve either. The one time I beat this level was just pure dumb luck, and I kept up that rhythm as best as I could. You might say I'm only dissing this minigame because of a skill issue on my part, and maybe you're right, but shut up! That doesn't mean it's not a bad minigame. 1 out of 5.
Bunnies are addicted to carrot juice, and Frame Raider has a soft spot for tropical environments. This is almost like a new take on the Space Invaders formula, now with enemies that can take a lot of heat. In this case, how quickly can you fill a Rabbid's stomach with carrot juice? The indication of completeness using their masks was a great touch. This minigame has one of my favorite tracks from the game, which I've just found out someone did a Mega Drive adaptation of. But yeah, 5 out of 5 on this one.
Ow! So for whatever reason, this game asks you to constantly move the nunchuck to keep pumping the carrot juice ammo to shoot at these Rabbids diving masks. Once they've had enough, they'll sink into the water and leave you alone. The aiming is a little off, but I'm pretty sure it's like that on purpose. The problem is it's hard to aim when your other arm is getting extremely tired from swinging the whole time. Because if you start swinging even slightly slower, you lose power and it's harder to aim the juice. If the swinging was at least strategic like it was in the shooting minigames, maybe I would have better things to say about this. As it is though, it's a 2 out of 5.
Now this is cinema. The music, the visuals, the gameplay, the mere fact that the level tasks you with drowning Rabbids, it's perfect. Like the door swinging minigame, this starts slow and becomes chaotic after the first 20 or 30 second mark. Keeping on top of the carrot juice cannon and aiming it directly at the soon-to-be hordes of Rabbids is a lot of fun, and with the fun music, bright visuals and non-stop chaos, I can't help but have a great time with this one. Unlike Dan, I didn't find myself getting tired afterwards, because while you do have to constantly be charging up the carrot juice cannon, it's not nearly as demanding as moving the nunchuck non-stop. Giving this a 5 out of 5.
Bunnies love disco dancing. Well, here we have our first Rabbified song, which aren't pitch corrected like you would expect. These are full-on reproductions. So far we've had a 60s song and now a 70s song. Why all the oldies? My guess is it's probably easier to license. Some people like these versions better than their originals, so I guess they did a good job. Still a 2 out of 5 for me.
Maybe it's just because of my background in drumming or my love of rhythm games, but I honestly really enjoy these. I'm sure they'll wear out after a while, but so far they feel like a nice little victory lap after everything else. Good rhythm, and I do think the Rabbids' bois lyrics are at least a little fun. I will say the nunchuck sometimes likes to register extra hits. Oh, would you look at that, I'm already mentioning the nunchuck again. And I don't think I'm making that up, but we'll have to see. It feels awfully familiar to some other Wii games I've played in the past. Also, side note, if I forget to comment on the song choice, it's because I am extremely unfamiliar with popular music. Sorry. At least the minigame is a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that this minigame type doesn't wear pretty thin very, very quickly. Obviously, each time we play it on each subsequent day, there is a different song. I do wonder if they used their best one in the first day though, because this is fine at best. It's no different to the first instance, except this time the music is a bit worse. It's not the best, but it's fine and inoffensive and going to get on my nerves. 2 out of 5.
Bunnies don't like being disturbed on holiday. The last FPS game was more like a warming up round, and this is more akin to what you'll see in the rest of the game. Now we have recurring characters like Clark the Super Rabbid, those giant grey Wah Rabbids. Newly introduced here are the Splinter Cell Rabbids, and those UFOs that they descend from. Lots of environmental interaction in this one, like exploding beach balls for combos. There's an actual sort of boss at the end, a giant submarine carrying what the manual calls frog Rabbids. From what I understand, these submarines were used more prominently in the sequel game. I guess that's their preferred method of transportation, except they fly. This level has plenty of soundtrack changes throughout, which are not terribly fitting. Feels more like what they had on hand. But they are great tracks nonetheless, and I appreciate the diversity here. This one gets a 4 out of 5.
Only on the second one of these, but I can already say the FPS levels are the most fleshed out parts of the game so far. I completely neglected to use the grappling hand last time, so I was glad to find some uses for it here. It's great for grabbing bunnies to shoot back as projectiles, as well as knocking back objects being shot at you. Using the hand to ricochet these rockets back at the submarine was a pretty fun set piece. And yeah, this music is way better than it has any right to be. But honestly, the most fun part of this was getting my revenge on the toilets from earlier. 4 out of 5.
A lot of fun to be had here in this Rabbid shooting minigame. I can see these maybe wearing a bit thin as well if I'm completely honest, but at this point it's a nice continuation of what came before, and certainly does seem like they'll continue to get more chaotic with more enemies and variety. Good game. 3 out of 5.
I just noticed, what's up with all the banana banners in this arena? What an illuminating concept. Bunnies can't fly. Launch Clark the Super Rabbit into the sky for a successful takeoff. Theoretically. Okay, a little better than bunnies don't give gifts, because it doesn't last as long. But again, you're really just spamming buttons. Giving it 4 out of 5 might be generous, but it's such an inoffensive little game that I can't really fault it. I've played through Rayman, Raving, Rabbids so many times at this point that the humor just goes over my head, honestly. It was fun to watch Dan play this for the first time on stream. 4 out of 5.
To me, this feels like what Bunnies Don't Give Gifts should have been. Technically, it's still a Wagglefest, but at the very least, there's a little more visual flair to it, and of course, more rabbit abuse is involved. It's not that much different from the first minigame, but a little extra presentation goes a long way, and I have to admit, every now and then, this game's style of humor wins me over. 3 out of 5.
I'm a sucker for quick clicking or quick shaking. I'm gonna sound like a broken record here and compare it to Bunnies Don't Give Gifts. It's a similar premise in terms of actual gameplay, and certainly a bit better due to the shorter length and the way of scoring. In Bunnies Don't Give Gifts, the faster you input, the faster you get to the destination, with the time left being your best way of tracking your score. In this, the harder you push the cart, the further the rabbit flies. Personally, I prefer this as it feels more like a score-based challenge you can get better at. While the other one you could push yourself to get to the destination a bit quicker, I do always sort of view it as a case of either you win or you don't. Either way, I'm a big fan of minigames like this, and really enjoyed the short and snappy nature of it. That's a 5 out of 5 from me.
Bunnies don't use toothpaste. Remove wriggly worms from this rabbit's disgusting mouth. Look at how the rabbit's eyes twitch as you're pulling one. Ugh. Did they really need a wiggling root when the tooth breaks? Why do they wear sweaters? I'm confused.
Oh, the sounds, I don't like them.
A rather fun gameplay experience, I will admit, but gets -1 point for being so grotesque. 3 out of 5.
Oh, then you have to look at their faces longer and then go in the mouth. Oh, I hate this. I can't believe this game predicted those gross out Flash game ads that I used to see on the internet all the time. And I'm sorry to say that in practice, it's not much better than what I feared those games would be like. Constant dentistry tool noises, extra gross out from the gross worms and their gross physics, ugh, and a bit of gameplay weirdness where I felt like I had to wait after pressing the grab button to pull the worms out properly. I know they're trying to get across that the Rabbids are these disgusting, unhinged beings, but this feels like a step too far for me. 2 out of 5.
Yes, it's gross, yes, it's simple, and no, I'm not ashamed to giggle away to myself every time I play this minigame. On the Xbox version, this controls pretty nicely. I know the Wii port involves a bit more actual interaction, but as it stands on the Xbox gamepad, this is the right mix of simple and chaotic. It's not quite in the realm of monotonous, but doesn't ever run the risk of not working and being frustrating. What I'm left with is a pretty funny concept and a quick 30 to 60 seconds of chaotic fun. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies are slow to react. How do I explain this one? Roll intro. Navigate this brain cell to its goal, I guess. There are some green blockages and you can hit them for a shortcut, but it takes quite a bit of momentum to break them. I don't care for the physics here. They're a bit unresponsive and the ball tends to stick to things. Just not a favorite minigame of mine, but it's fine. Me and Dan both didn't care for there being a time limit. It doesn't need to exist for most of these games, to be honest. 3 out of 5.
Yeah, this one's just alright. The ball movement delay might honestly be worse with the Wii Remote, and the time limit is kind of strict for the first version of this minigame. I do like how they framed it though. The opening cutscene threw me off the first time I saw it. You've probably noticed a pattern by now, but the physical comedy with the Rabbids usually works for me. Not sure if that's a reflection of how I feel about some of their minigames, but who can say? 3 out of 5.
This is the stuff I'm into. No, not like that. I like a good minigame where you control the platform and let a ball roll around on it. It can be annoying and frustrating at times, but only in the good way. Bouncing off the wrong thing, over tilting so you miss an opening, it's all good fun in my opinion. Mix it with one of the more unusual settings for a minigame, and you have one that I honestly had a great time with. On an Xbox controller, without motion controls, I think it's a safe assumption that I was going to have a better time with this than Dan. 5 out of 5.
Bunnies just wanna have fun. This is hardly rhythm gameplay. What do you mean the pattern focuses on an instrument and then abruptly switches to the vocals? Sometimes the rabbit doesn't connect with the beat either. This is the stupidest looking dance I've ever seen. I hate this one, it's awful. The bare minimum isn't even achieved, and thus it gets 0 stars.
Unfortunately, I did skip this one since Frame let me know I could, but when I came back to it later, yeah, something's definitely off about it. Like Frame said, the main issue is when the game tries to switch the rhythm from the music to the vocals. That just doesn't feel natural when playing any kind of rhythm game, especially when you're trying to keep up with motion controls. Apparently the developers of this one did not just want to have fun. 2 out of 5.
Look, there's nothing I can say here that hasn't already been discussed. All I can add is that on top of the bizarre choice to switch between vocals and instrumentals, the Xbox port still doesn't actually line up with the music. When the Rabbids reach the area to hit, the music just doesn't, and neither of those line up with the exact timing you need to hit the button to score points either. On a fundamental level, the Xbox 360 version of these minigames don't work, but woof, this is the worst of the 3 so far. 0 out of 5.
Bunnies like a good race on the beach. I always remember this as one of the games that's shown on the box. Always like the concept that Rabbids are fully integrated with nature, yet completely disrespectful of it, further assuring us that the Rabbids are corrupt and need to be taken care of. Yeah, I don't have much useful dialogue for this minigame, you really just run a couple laps at the beach. Boost mechanics by slapping your warthog with a fly swatter. Wait, are we any better than the Rabbids here? Oh, look at that, a Rayman 4 prototype shark hanging in the background. Well, 4 out of 5, I guess.
Wow.
Look at those nice white shoes!
This might be the closest we've gotten to having actual 3D movement in what was originally going to be a 3D platformer. Well, this is a pretty good racing minigame at the very least. The controls are a little drifty, but I think it works in the context of the game itself. The races are pretty easy to win if you watch for spots to overtake the other players, so I found myself keeping an eye out for shortcuts, which there are plenty of. Wouldn't mind seeing more of this one. 4 out of 5.
Racing? 3D environments? Responsive controls? That's not the Rayman Raving Rabbids I'm used to. I actually forgot about these minigames before replaying Raving Rabbids recently, and I was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed them. This bite-sized race takes place on the island that another minigame occurs on, and I really like that. I like seeing larger areas that feel intentional, instead of a surreal 5-second cutscene with a plain white background leading into a minigame with a static camera. This is very much the stuff I'd want more of, and sing the praises of more if this was 2006 and Ubisoft were taking feedback for future Rabbids games. Shame they never did this in Raving Rabbids 2 onwards. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies don't milk cows. Well, isn't this lazy? Spam the buttons, milk a cow. I like how this one rabbit appears to be worshipping the cow. There's nothing interesting about this minigame. You blink and it's over. Well, not in Dan's case it seems. 1 out of 5.
This was the first regular minigame I had to skip. Trust me when I say that I tried shaking the Wii Remote and Nunchuck in every conceivable way at every possible speed, and I was still not able to fill all 3 buckets in 16 seconds. I have absolutely no idea what I was doing wrong, but this minigame is so weirdly strict on the time limit that my arms eventually started to hurt. Fortunately, this was when Frame kindly revealed to me that you only have to do 3 minigames on each floor. Then you'll unlock the rescue mission and you can continue on. 0 out of 5. Next.
You know how I said before that I liked games where you rapidly press a button a bunch of times? Yeah, well that's not the only factor. If you're doing this to get somewhere quick, or to fire a rabbit off of a minecart, then it's fun. If you're milking a cow and it lasts 20 seconds, well then it's not something I like. I can't hate it truly, as it's mostly inoffensive, but you can tell this was a last minute addition to meet the minigame quota just before release. I mean, what's milking a cow got to do with Rayman escaping the Rabbids and rescuing baby glow boxes anyway? Apparently this supports Xbox Live Vision, you know, that little camera attachment you could use in the early 2000s? But you'll forgive me for not wanting to stand in the living room in front of my family and mimic the motion of milking a cow. I'm sorry, I'm just not going to do it. 1 out of 5.
Bunnies don't like bats, so the player has to retrieve some pigs one at a time to bring back to their pen. Cool to see Rayman have an actual mini adventure like this. Those pig screams are over the top, although that's not atypical for a pig.
I wonder why they scream like that.
The first time I dropped the pig, it immediately escaped somehow. This seemed to also happen for Dan. Accounting for that nonsense, I really don't care to also have to abide by a time limit. Ultimately, it's not the most entertaining minigame, but it's something different at least. 3 out of 5.
Weirdly enough, the first thing that came to mind for me while playing this was the island flyover mode in Wii Sports Resort, although the controls are way less precise than they are in that game. Definitely felt a bit of delay while tilting the remote around. I do know this game was made before Motion Plus existed after all, but despite that, the developers gave the player a pretty generous time limit and hitbox for grabbing the pigs, so I never felt that anything here was too unfair. Definitely is a little weird that the pigs can bounce straight out of the pen if you let them go with too much speed, but otherwise, this was honestly a great time. 4 out of 5.
Flying around on an island, picking up pigs and stealing them back from Rabbids. It sounds like a lot of fun. Also pretty difficult if you entirely forget about the boosts in your first 6 attempts. I have nothing else to say on this matter, I'm going to move on. 3 out of 5.
Bunnies are amazing. No idea what the implication is here. You get a red icon of a rabbit that you move from point A to B. Don't touch any of the walls, and well, it's pretty much a big game of operation, isn't it? It is quite thrilling to be able to make it to the end without a collision, if you're able to do so. This is one Rabbids minigame that could easily have its own standalone spin-off for mobile or something. Gyroscope controls for this kind of thing would be a lot of fun. 5 out of 5.
Maybe it's just because I don't have the steadiest hand, but this one was kind of tough to play correctly. Sometimes I found it easier to brute force my way through some of the tighter spots in the maze, just so I didn't waste any time being too careful. The time limit for this minigame is fairly strict, probably to account for this being a single-player mode. I have to assume this one is a little more chaotic and interesting in multiplayer. 2 out of 5.
Oh man, this must have sucked using a Wiimote, but on an Xbox controller, this is pretty fun. Was it a last-minute addition with very little thought put into it? Almost definitely. Does that make it any less fun? Absolutely not. This is a great minigame with the potential to cause a lot of frustration, but you know, the good kind. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies get a kick out of hip-hop. First backdrop change-up. I wouldn't expect a hip-hop concert to have so much death, but it's a better fit than the other available backdrops, I guess. Huh, it's almost like they've censored the song with some random record scratching. And the Nintendo DS version has the full unfiltered version, albeit in lesser quality. Bizarre. This one's mildly entertaining, I guess, faster paced when compared with the others, so feels like a slight improvement. 3 out of 5.
This one was just okay. I think my lack of knowledge in pop culture music kind of bit me in the butt here, because despite the rabid lyrics being plenty audible, I still managed to miss a lot of the beats. 3 out of 5.
Look, it might be a bit better than the last one, but I still just really don't like these music minigames. Big fan of rhythm games, but this one just doesn't do it for me sadly. Song choice is alright, and I kinda like the zombie theming, but that's about it. 2 out of 5.
Bunnies think they're in a movie. Guess the Rabbids made their own little movie studio, and look at me invading the place. There's some blinker you miss at targets here, like these Rabbids holding tree props. I imagine you need to tag them all to get a perfect score, so good luck with that. There's a stealth mission spoof here, which is pretty funny. Lots of other scripted scenes here as well, like this Clark Super Bunny flying right into your screen. And there's that one rabbit with its face stuck in coal. The shifting soundtrack helps it feel like a developing scene, building tension up until the end. I think this is one of, if not the best FPS minigame in here. 5 out of 5.
Stop the presses, this one has a train in it. So up until now, all of these minigames have taken place in these indeterminate locations, which add to the feeling that the world building here was completely scrambled in the final version of Raving Rabbids. However, that feeling goes completely out the window with Bunnies Think They're in a Movie. Holy cow, man, this might be the best minigame so far. Given how run down their Coliseum appears to be, I really love the idea that the Rabbids had to throw together these events for Rayman with whatever resources they had lying around. And if you're going to make an on-rail shooter in a movie set, this is how you move the camera. While, like Frame said, the stealth-like movements are automatic since we're still on rails, they do add to this genuine vibe of actually acting in a movie set. I love the scrolling background over to the right side, the way the train cars in the set wobble around like they would for an actual film, and the Rabbids interrupting what you would expect to happen by attacking you during filming. Again, this is a great way to subvert what we expect to happen during one of these FPS levels, and I do think that helped make it more impactful. Easily my favorite game we've played so far. 5 out of 5.
Fantastic level design here with some really fun action set pieces that honestly you wouldn't expect from a mode like this. I really don't have a lot to add that hasn't already been said, but just know that I too am a fan of this level. It reminds me a lot of the Raving Rabbids TV party levels where all the shooting minigames took place on film sets. I think this one actually does it better though. 4 out of 5.
For a successful beef stew, add a little thyme and a few bay leaves.
Bunnies have no memory. Well, my memory sucks, so already this one isn't terribly fun for me. It's a game of Simon, but instead of pushing buttons, you're pushing Rabbids. In summary, just select the Rabbids in the order of their... I already forgot what we're talking about, but I do have a 4 out of 5 written in front of me.
This one avoids the common trappings of a Simon Says type game by allowing you to repeat the pattern as quickly as you want to, which both makes it easier to stay on track, and also sounds completely ridiculous when you repeat the pattern quickly. Granted, it's kind of hard to screw up a repeat after me kind of minigame, but the sounds at least make it more entertaining than it would be otherwise. 4 out of 5.
Simon says poke the rabbit till it makes an uncomfortable noise. If Simon tells me to do it, I guess I have no choice. This minigame is far from revolutionary, but it's good fun, and the way it's executed always gets a laugh out of me. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies rarely leave their burrows. A fun little rush of adrenaline. I've wanted to hit these Rabbids with shovels for so long now. The hitboxes are a bit deceiving though. Once you get into the groove it's fine, but yeah, the free roaming controls aren't great. I recall the PS2 version playing a little better, where you just directed the analog stick to it. Believe it's the same on 360. Guess we'll find out when Ben plays. It's interesting how there doesn't seem to be one definitive version of this game, largely because of the difference in controls and how the minigames use them. Either way, 5 out of 5.
I really wanted to like this one more, but that weird depth perception problem with the bunnies in the back row does knock it a point for me. At least aiming with the Wii Remote is pretty intuitive, and I'll never turn down a good game of whack-a-mole when it's offered. Something I've also noticed while playing these minigames, occasionally I've gotten a thumbs up from one of my actions. The sound and visual effect would make these pretty satisfying to pull off, if I could figure out how I was doing them half the time. At first I thought giving the Wii Remote a harder swing had something to do with it, but I couldn't prove that consistently. Anyway, this minigame gets a 4 out of 5.
So this is Whack-A-Mole, and you use the thumbstick on the Xbox controller exactly the same as the PS2 port to select the area to whack, and then you press a button to whack. It's functionally very simple, but there's a reason we all know what Whack-A-Mole is. It works, it's timeless, it's fun, especially when it gets this chaotic. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies are bad at peekaboo. It's like the other running minigames, but now, after a set time, our pal Sergey will turn around to check if we're moving or not. It's red light, green light, basically. Depending on the system you're playing, the requirements once Sergey turns around can differ. Dan will tell you about the Wii version in a moment. On other systems, it's essentially a series of QuickTime events. I'd like to share that my first experience with playing this game was on the PlayStation 2, shortly after buying one, and so I didn't yet familiarize myself with the controller. Being thrown into a QuickTime minigame requiring knowledge of the face buttons was not very cool. I wouldn't say this is a great minigame in my opinion, but inoffensive overall. 3 out of 5.
I am almost certain that this idea has been a Mario Party minigame at some point, but I do think this is the most unique take on it that I've seen. Keeping the Wiimote pointer in a randomly moving circle was surprisingly tense and didn't feel unfair. This is a pretty good way to simulate that concept in minigame form. Also, Sergey. We love Sergey here. At least I think that's how his name is pronounced. 4 out of 5.
Ugh, this one annoys me a bit. I like the rapid button pressing of the left and right triggers. You know, I've said I like this kind of minigame before, but doing the weird timed button presses with no wiggle room whatsoever annoys me. Not because it's hard, more so just because in my experience, it's completely unfair. Not a very fun one in my eyes. 2 out of 5.
Bonino's Danza la Bamba. Another new environment. a new dance. And what a dance that is! Thematically, at least, this hits the nail on the head. I think it deserves the same ranking as the previous one. If you complete all the minigames in this arena, you unlock Girls Just Wanna Have Fun in your jukebox. But does anyone really bother with the incel activities? Oh my. You know, I did not write that. I did not write it like that, but it sounded very bad. Yeah, you expect me to sit around here listening to Girls Just Wanna Have Fun? I like how when you unlock this, Rayman dances so blissfully to the song while all you hear in the background are booing Rabbids from the ambiance of the arena. Just let bro do his thing.
Came back to this one later as well. Now this is more like it. Granted, I recognized this song right away, but the bunnies are consistently timed to the lyrics for the whole song this time. Also, I'm 90% sure the reason they went with this track is so we could have the chorus sound exactly like this. Honestly, I approve. Whoever picked this song understood the assignment. Good job, guys. 4 out of 5.
This is where I'm mentally checking out. I don't like these levels enough to care as much as it requires. It's fine at best, but I still encounter the dodgy input timings. This song's quite good though. 2 out of 5.
Bunnies don't rest in peace. Okay, lots to say about this one. There are plenty of new introductions here, like Rabbids piloting UFOs, or those mole Rabbids? I think that's what they're called. They're not in the manual though. Actually, a lot of them aren't in the manual, but Pink is, and his robotic remains are creeping around the place. Initially, Pink looked like this in development, but now he's just a spooky animatronic that constantly stares at you. You can't destroy it until you disable its force field. Fairly intimidating, and this does mark the first occurrence of a raving rabbid robot. Clearly these guys have some kind of intelligence to create that thing, right? I've never seen that happen before. Here's a new power-up, the Multi-Plunger. Great for taking down UFOs and those Splinter Cell Rabbids that follow. Hell, why not give them the old humiliation ritual? What follows is essentially a boss fight with Pink at the end, as the player ricochets its huge rockets using plungers. Hey, does anyone know the name of that specific sample playing in the background? I've heard this in so many things, mainly action flicks. I'm just curious at this point. Hearing the music in this minigame strongly reminds me of those platforming stages in the Nintendo DS game. Said game that I played before the console game, further selling my confusion upon playing this one. You guys need to understand there are many layers of disappointment here. Now let me just fix the mood and give this a 5 out of 5.
This stage really likes those goggle-wearing bunnies that can dodge roll out of the way of your shots. I think the strategy is to wait for them to prepare to shoot. I'm a gamer, for crying out loud. I don't have time for things like patience. Jokes aside though, good stage. I do like the atmosphere of this area a lot, and from what I've been trained to expect, I assume we'll be seeing it a good few more times in the future. Looking forward to it. 4 out of 5.
Big fan of the setting in this level, and once again this feels like a pretty good continuation of the formula, with more enemy types being introduced and the chaos being dialed up significantly. I might go as far as to say this is the first time I got a little bored during a Rabbids shooting game though. Not bored to an extreme degree, but there are moments of these where I mentally check out of it, sadly. Though I still like it a lot, so 3 out of 5.
Bunnies are heartless with pigs. Okay, you're presented with a map that has only a few successful outcomes. You're holding a pig to return to its mother, and if the pig squeals, you gotta find another path, because there's a crazed rabbit with a blowtorch afoot. This is one of only a handful of minigames where you realize the Rabbids are actually quite ruthless. And this minigame is alright. A maze format based on audio cues is a unique approach. Now, while the audio comes from my speaker on PC, on the Wii it comes from your Wiimote. Dan? And oh yeah, 4 out of 5.
Uh-oh. I did check my local game stores for an original copy of Raving Rabbids, but what you've been seeing is the fabled Dolphin emulator, upscaling the game to 1080p for me. I then paired my Wiimote through the Windows 10 control panel, and everything has worked perfectly fine up until now. Unfortunately, no matter how much fiddling I did with this setup, I could not get the Wiimote speaker sounds to play, either from the remote or in emulator. Sadly, I had to skip this one, which really is a bummer. Consider this one unranked.
Okay, no, this is cinema. Drag a pig through a randomly generated minefield with the only saving grace being audio cues that don't help even slightly, leaving you with complete guesswork and a warehouse full of bacon in the end. That's what I play Rayman Raving Rabbids for. In my experience, even with headphones, I found the audio cues to be somewhat non-existent. They played occasionally, but I would still die at seemingly safe places. I'm not really sure. It could be that my game was bugged, or that's just what it's like on the Xbox port. Either way, I think it actually makes the minigame funnier for me, that at random intervals this pig will just get demolished with no warning. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies are oversensitive. Another minigame where you can tell there wasn't much thought put into it. In some cases though, like this one, it pays off. I don't care much for spamming the mouse button to hit the bunny, but I do like hitting Professor Barranco, the rabid scientist. He's in the manual. After 10 seconds, see how much pain you've inflicted and hopefully win. 4 out of 5.
Honestly, I don't care if we win, this is just fun. Physical comedy wins again. The description for this minigame was not super clear, but once I figured out what I was doing, I had a great time. 4 out of 5. More of this, please.
You hit a rabbit on the head with a hammer as many times as you can in a short space of time and watch his Tom and Jerry-esque wound reach unsettling heights, and you expect me not to give it a 5?
Bunnies have a poor grasp of anatomy. Here is an excellent little puzzle game where a rabid cardboard cutout spins until the power goes out. Now you have to match the limbs with its body in pitch darkness. There's a point system here, and if you get enough of them, you win the minigame. 5 out of 5.
Okay, I really like this one, but I have to mention something real quick. The tutorial pages for these minigames are a little too vague. I understand if the devs wanted to cut down on using video files to preview each minigame, but some of these animations of a rabbit just don't do it for me. For a good few of the minigames, I've found myself just starting so I could fail once and try again with a better understanding of what to do. And spoiler alert, that happened to me a lot during the rest of the playthrough. Anyway, I do like how this one utilizes the Wiimote's ability to recognize when it's being turned in place. You don't get a lot of time to place the rabbit's parts, so quick thinking and memory is rewarded pretty well. This one's really fun. 5 out of 5.
This is shaping up to be my favourite day in the whole game, to be honest, because once again we have a wonderful minigame. Guesswork and visuals can always garner funny results, which for a comedy game I guess is a good thing. It can be pretty tough to get this exact, but that's no problem because I could play this plenty of times and not get bored. Certainly one of the more creative minigames in this whole experience, and I love it for that. 5 out of 5.
Deep down, bunnies are rockers. Huh, is this the first title that doesn't start with bunnies? This soundtrack has a Rabbids version somewhere. I know there's an instrumental in the Nintendo DS game. Nowadays, I most easily appreciate it with this one guy's cover on YouTube. The only thing new here is that song, otherwise we're seeing a reused stage and animation set. The Rabbids screaming in the background is just obnoxious in my opinion. I would say this is on par with the other uninteresting dance games. 2 out of 5.
I don't know, man. Maybe Rabbids just weren't meant to rock out. This was the first song I nearly failed because the hits were all over the place. Doesn't help that the rhythm switches from the instruments to the lyrics again. Can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I prefer the pop culture music. 2 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm not bored with these mini games at all anymore. Not a fan of them even slightly, and the Xbox port's insistence on basically not working is really grinding my gears. 0 out of 5.
Bunnies like a good race. Same title as the last race, but not on a beach. Fun fact, the map for this level comes straight out of the Rayman 4 prototype. So in execution, this isn't much different from the earlier beach race. Now it's in a cemetery. Contextually, I can't tell you why, but these are really just leftovers anyways. I love that Rabbid blasting Butcher's DJ on his ride. Which is a track that, actually come to think of it, we haven't been properly introduced to yet. 3 out of 5.
I honestly really enjoy the slippery controls of the racing here, seeing as we're riding giant wild animals instead of carts. I too like the one Rabbid blasting music as he races by, not to mention the others screaming as you pass them. Not too many shortcuts this time, mostly just mud to avoid on the turns, but still, pretty good track. My only question is, why are the win conditions based on your best time and not your actual placement? Weird decision there. I totally forgot that these were time trials until my second go. Regardless, this one gets a 4 out of 5.
I like the races in this game. Since we have an annoying dance minigame in every chapter, I'm quite glad we're not lumbered with a shooting game 15 times either. That said, I prefer the shooting to the music ones, and I prefer the racing to the shooting. What I'm saying is I'm glad these levels exist, and this is a really fun instance of it. The racing is simple but easy to get into, and the environment here is good fun too. Like Framerate has said, this is a leftover environment from the prototype, which is always cool to see. I like this, that's probably about it. 3 out of 5.
Bunnies can't play soccer. Professor Barranco is the referee in a classic game of soccer. Or so he thought, because Rayman clearly had other plans. Kick Barranco and try to navigate him into the goal past that big gray rabbit. Do these guys have actual names? I'm gonna call them Big Wah from now on. There's a unique fail animation where Barranco comes flying back into Rayman's face. Unexpected and pretty funny. There are more of these fail animations in the game, but I won't bother to bring them up every time. It's just an appreciated effort on their part. 5 out of 5.
We're riding! Okay, now this is what I want to see more of from this game. I hate to throw the term expectation subversion around, but this might be the best example I can think of. Such a simple minigame in concept, but I like how you actually have to aim your, soccer ball in midair to guide it to the goal. Definitely one of those minigames that's funniest the first time, but that doesn't lessen its impact in the slightest. Any chance to take revenge on these little buggers is a win to me. 5 out of 5.
What a game. The sudden change when Rayman kicks the rabbit instead of the ball will always be funny to me. This minigame is just complicated enough, but simple enough to be loads of fun, and certainly on the more unique side of them. It feels like a proper thought-out minigame, which is nice. And kicking a rabbit, what's not to love? 5 out of 5.
Bunnies like surprises. Direct this clueless rabbit to, safety with your horns. Collect points by doing as much damage as possible. At the end, your efforts are kindly rewarded. If you didn't know, you can actually lead the rabbit off the floating death sandbox. That's an instant fail, though. This is often reflected as one of the best minigames. At the very least, it's a standout. Feels like it came straight out of an old Looney Tunes cartoon. 5 out of 5.
Wow, another game that messed with my expectations, in the best way possible. At first I was wondering how I was supposed to reach that extremely high score threshold, but then it hit me. This one is kind of fun with the motion controls, even though the rabbit tends to move a little too far in either direction, so you have to be at least a little careful. Not to mention the scoring is surprisingly in-depth, giving you the option to combo multiple objects of the same type together. I wonder why the Rabbids are allowing Rayman to inflict so much pain on their own kind lately. Maybe we've just reached that rank in Rabbid society? Who can say, but I'll take more of it any day, please. 4 out of 5.
I'm going against the grain here. I really didn't like this one. It gets extra credit for being hilarious because, obviously it is. You have to blind and torture a rabbit in a kid's game. It's an incredible move from Ubisoft. And maybe it's because I'm not playing with motion controls, but I just don't find this one fun to play. It's maybe a little too slow paced, so beyond the funny animations of the rabbit getting hurt, I just wasn't that engaged. Maybe it's my TikTok generation brain that needs more fast paced fun, but I couldn't get into it. Oh well, it's still funny, but not one I want to play again, so 1 out of 5.
Bunnies are slow to react, part 2. Well, here we are, day 7 with the first repeated minigame. It's not identical, but let's be honest, even considering all the things this game got away with, I don't think that's one that they could. This is no better or worse than the last part. It's a slightly bigger challenge, but nothing substantial. 3 out of 5.
Wait, we're only halfway through and we're already seeing repeated minigames? Oh boy, I hope that isn't a sign for the future. I didn't feel like dealing with the strict time limit again, so I just took the free skip with this one after a few tries. Sorry. 2 out of 5.
Going against the grain again here, but I'm really glad to see this minigame come back with a different set of walls and obstacles. I find it really fun, at least on this controller. 5 out of 5.
Bunnies are raving mad. Yeah, so here's the Butcher's DJ, which in theory was to be used in conjunction with some Butcher Rabbit character in the prototype. This is the most intense of the rhythm minigames yet, which at least comparatively makes it somewhat enjoyable. 3 out of 5.
I'm mixed on this one. There's some offbeat stuff to deal with here, but the beat of the song is pretty much just 4/4. I found myself focusing on the rabbit positions more than the music this time, if that makes any sense. But it wasn't too hard compared to some of the others, so 3 out of 5 it is.
I don't feel good about saying this, but this one's alright. I like the music, and while the gameplay is still a bit boring, the music kind of demands more hectic button pressing. 3 out of 5.
Bunnies love digging tunnels. Uh-oh, the pogo stick Rabbids have arrived. Easy to tackle with the grappling hook, but only if they're close by. I've noticed if you ever grab a rabbit that's more of a background prop, its eyes will remain open for some reason. There's a new spider robot introduced here, which is basically a re-implementation of that rideable spider from the prototype. And with this guy, he's gonna shoot some goo at you if you don't take him down quickly enough. Rabbids showing up out of nowhere in the tunnel was pretty creepy.
Oh, I don't like that they just show up.
Oh, MLG Rabbid skills. It's almost implied that Rayman uses his helicopter hair here, floating from one minecart to another, although there's no sound effects to imply as such. Did that Rabbid commit Sudoku? Anyways, this minigame is good. Not as memorable as some of the FPS games before it, but fine. The minecart theming is cool at least. 4 out of 5.
I think this is where I finally caught on that each FPS level has a boombox that stops the rabbits from attacking you and causes them to dance. Not sure why I didn't pick up on that before, but it's hard to ignore yet another use of girls just wanna have fun. Really stretching the use of that music license, huh? Anywho, this is another solid level, and I enjoyed the change of scenery. Minecart levels are a pretty easy way to win me over, and I do like how Rayman jumps from cart to cart. 5 out of 5.
A minecart section? This level reminds me of those arcade things where you sit in a chair and it takes you through a bumpy minecart ride while the chair lightly vibrates. Either way, this level is great. It makes for some pretty exciting and engaging shooting with one of my favourite and most unique areas in the game. Good fun. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies Never Close Doors, Part 2. Well, same as before, but this time you have to avoid hitting the frog rabbit. That's it, really. Can't say it contributes to any fun factor. 3 out of 5.
Honestly, this one was a little better on my end. Trust me, the sense of dread I felt seeing this minigame again had me worried. But there's actually a little more strategy to the sequel. You're not being asked to close the doors as rapidly this time, since you have to carefully avoid the other rabbits getting in the way. The controls are still not as responsive on the Wii, so I had to retry this a few times, but still, I'll take this over the first version any day. 2 out of 5.
Another repeating minigame after we just had one in the previous day. It looks like we found the point in development where they just realised they had 3 months left to ship the game. Good fun though. I love the first iteration of this, and I think it's a pretty reasonable continuation of that. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies can't slide. Well, this is straight up trial and error. And don't get me started on that pestering cover of Jingle Bells. The goal is to aim for the center while accounting for the opposition's movements. Except you get mere seconds to think about it. There's very little predictability here with all the, Raymen bouncing about. Did they clone Rayman for this? Couldn't they have just used Rabbids instead? Anyway, rely on luck to get an accumulative score of less than 7.50 meters. For the longest time, I misunderstood this minigame's description, thinking I had to get less than 7.50 for each wave, then repeatedly failing in confusion. They could have worded that better, don't you think? Not a minigame I ever look forward to replaying. 1 out of 5.
This is where I started to pick up on which minigames work really well with one player, and which ones absolutely do not. Bunnies Can't Slide is a really bad take on curling, where everyone slides their puck on the same rink at the exact same time. Honestly, if every player took turns like in actual curling, it might work better, but I seriously have to question how this would even be fun for multiple players. You get a very short time to aim your puck before they all go flying, and it is nearly impossible to react to all the CPUs changing their directions up to the last second. 0 out of 5.
Right, so in this minigame, you just have to make sure that at the end of the third round, your total distance from the centre across the 3 rounds adds up to less than 7.5 meters. This isn't easy for sure, but it doesn't require beating the enemy AI at all, luckily, so just treat them as obstacles here, I suppose. It is still mostly luck-based though. 2 out of 5.
Bunnies have natural rhythm. 4 colored radios, 3 dancing rabbits for each. Turn on their radio to distract them while you toss them out of the playing space. Watch Rayman's foot twitch out whenever you land a hit. This and its sequel minigame are entirely absent from the Xbox 360 release, replaced by a new set of minigames that nobody seems to like. 3 out of 5.
Another terribly explained minigame that is actually pretty fun in practice. But again with Girls Just Wanna Have Fun. Sheesh! Rayman has canonically listened to this song more times than I have. Fortunately, I didn't have to listen for very long, since it's pretty easy to avoid the Rabbids and kick the dancing ones away. Not much of a challenge here, but again, hard to complain about free rabbit abuse, along with being one of the few minigames to give us full analog movement. Also, making Rayman do the stanky leg for no reason. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies Have Natural Rhythm sounds pretty fun. Instead though, on the Xbox port of the game, I got lumbered with one of the few exclusive minigames, and oh boy. This one makes use of the Xbox Live camera, if you want it to. But as I said before, I don't want to do that. So jumping into Bunnies Don't Like Basketball, it becomes clear what this is. That awful cow tossing game from the start, plus aiming, plus doing it more than one time. It sucks. You have to spin round and toss the cow into baskets to get a high score, and it's simply just not fun. Aiming is hard enough because of having to release the cow at the right moment when it's already going fast, and then actually landing it in the moving target is even harder. It's not good, and I don't like it. 1 out of 5.
Whoa, Big Nurgle returns! Bunnies Are Fantastic Dancers Part 2. Well, it's the first repeating rhythm minigame. If you thought these weren't interesting the first time, well, hope you appreciate the added challenge because there's nothing else going on here. This is the easiest Part 2 in its subgenre, and while Dan seems to continue enjoying them, in revisiting the game, it just feels like a chore to complete. 2 out of 5.
Second verse, a little worse than the first. Some of the patterns in this were kinda tough to grasp compared to last time, but at least there weren't any vocals to switch between. Kind of surprised we already have our first repeated rhythm minigame though. The repetition is definitely starting to set in for me. This one's only getting a 3 out of 5.
Haha, this again. Ugh. 1 out of 5.
Bunnies Never Struck Gold. Much as I enjoy this environment, we've seen it numerous times by now in various minigames. There's not much for new content here. I noticed the introductory jingle is a near one-for-one of Apache by Jorgen Ingman. I wonder how long they'll stay like that. Okay, not forever. Don't mind me, just on my way to drop this rabbit off a cliff. Well, it looks like they did save one thing to introduce here, the armored Rabbids. I love the way they waddle about. Check this out, I picked up the armored rabbit with a piece still on its chest. Then a nearby rabbit hits me, and the rabbit takes damage but stays in my grasp. I don't know how interesting that is really, but I've never seen it happen before. No, I don't have any games on my phone. Go away.
How about 3 out of 5?
Another great stage here, although I will say these are starting to get a little long. Honestly, you could port some of these levels for an arcade cabinet and they would probably fit right in. Would have been really funny to shoot down Rabbids with laser guns. 4 out of 5.
I hate to say it, but I didn't really enjoy this one. I think it's a touch too long and doesn't really do anything interesting enough for me to keep on loving it throughout. Maybe I'm just being picky, but it's probably the first time I'd say I started hoping to get a race instead of a shooting game, because what I don't want is for these to really get on my nerves like the music games. Still, it's not awful, and if this wasn't the third time we'd had a Wild West shooting game, I might have given it a better score. 2 out of 5.
Bunnies can't shear sheep. Some big wah are attacking these poor sheep who desperately need shearing. Guess it's up to you. Try to navigate your cursor around the rabbits to shear the sheep. Touching a rabbit with the scissors causes you to lose a single digit of points. Okay. Your score collects so quickly that it honestly doesn't matter. I will admit it's pretty satisfying to get all that wool off. Surely more so for the sheep in question. 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm with Frame on this one. This might be the most forgiving minigame yet. I was more than 200 points over the required score by the end. I guess the big rabbits in the way are supposed to be an obstacle, but honestly, I just kept moving around them and I did fine. Another minigame made easier by the Wiimote's pointer precision, I guess. That, or I just had too much sheer skill. No, I'm not taking that pun back. You can boo me if you want, but you know I'm right. 3 out of 5.
This is such a bizarre one. Why are these big rabbits attacking the sheep? Why are there sheep in this game? What does shearing them even do? Why is that helping them? Aren't the rabbits still just going to kill them if they're bold? Anyway, a pretty fun precision game here. Keep the cursor on the sheep and avoid the rabbits while rapidly pressing A. As I'm not using a mouse or a Wiimote, this is a bit less interesting. You know, a thumbstick control scheme for this isn't too engaging, but it's certainly still kind of fun. 3 out of 5.
Bunnies don't like being shot at. I always forget this minigame even exists. It's over so fast and the gimmick is basically as slapstick as can be. Throw your plungers at a rotating circus rabbit. There's an entertainment factor from determining the inertia of your plunger. It's not terribly interesting, but yeah, it's over so fast that it doesn't get in the way. The blabbering carnival speech from a distant rabbit is pretty charming. This is one of those games where the presentation sells it a lot more than the gameplay itself, but all considered, I'll give it a 4 out of 5.
This one is weird, man. For a lot of these minigames, we've been aiming with the Wii remote and shaking the nunchuck to perform actions. But now you have to aim and flick with the Wiimote and attempt to land your shots with some level of accuracy. And the nunchuck does absolutely nothing. Fortunately, the target score for this is really forgiving, or I'd probably dislike this one a lot more, but playing it didn't feel very natural to me. The soccer minigame did this a lot better. 2 out of 5.
More rabbit torture. I like it. This time the rabbit isn't blindfolded, rather he's tied to a spinning platform and you have to shoot at him. If this game was about people rather than rabbits, it would have been banned before it came out. I just want to point that out. I'm not complaining though. Aiming to shoot the rabbits through the obstacles while it moves around is good fun. I could do this minigame a lot more times and not get bored. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies have a great ear for music. Some ne'er-do-well rabbits aren't performing correctly in choir.
You gotta hit the little brat with a wiffle ball bat.
Can't believe I just referenced that. The only way to know who's misperforming is to zoom in on individual rabbits, then hopefully find the rascal and give him a good old smack. Nearby rabbits will tattle on each other, so use their hints to your advantage. I love this minigame, but it gets -1 point for its running length of 1 minute and 43 seconds. Seriously? It's fun, but not minute and 43 seconds fun. 4 out of 5.
Okay, I promise the Stockholm Syndrome isn't setting in, but this was one of my favorites in the whole game. Take notes, Ubisoft. If you're gonna torture us with rabbits singing, at least let us whack a few of them every now and then. The nunchuck unfortunately did start acting up again and occasionally caused me to fail by registering a second hit, but I've just kinda learned to deal with it at this point. I agree with Frame that the timer could have been shorter, but I reached the target score within 30 seconds to go, so maybe I was just rushing. I'm surprised how much effort went into this one minigame. Loved the rabbits tattling on each other. This is basically just middle school choir simulator. 4 out of 5.
Oh hey, I've had this nightmare before. Slapping Rabbids for singing badly and using the others to snitch on them is a good idea for a minigame, but as has already been mentioned, this goes on way too long. It's not that engaging, you know? That said, this one is utterly hilarious, and while I don't know how to fully describe it, first jumping into this minigame makes me feel cold. It gives me a truly unnerving feeling. It might be the most disturbing minigame visually, but I can't really explain why. It's horrible. It makes me uncomfortable talking about it, but I also utterly love it. But yeah, it goes on too long, so 3 out of 5.
Bunnies Love Disco Dancing Part 2. Oh boy, what to say about all these Part 2s? The upgrade and challenge is more substantial than the last rhythm game, but I can't say this was any more entertaining. Maybe I'm being too critical of these, but can you really blame me? When your designated driver walks up to you like this, you know you're in for some trouble. 2 out of 5.
Another beat map where they try to switch the notes from the music to the vocals and, yup, still doesn't work very well. I'm sorry that I don't have these extremely well-known pop culture lyrics memorized, but I spend most of my time listening to movie and video game soundtracks, thank you very much. The footage doesn't lie. Whenever one of these minigames tries to have me play to the lyrics of a verse, I completely lose the rhythm. I'm uncultured, what do you want from me? 3 out of 5.
I mean, it's better than having my back hairs plucked out one at a time by a hateful Viking, so I'll give it that, but otherwise, you know, I'm not really very impressed. 1 out of 5.
Bunnies only fly downwards. Rayman has committed an indefensible act among the Rabbids and is now being forced to jump off a UFO diving board. What did Rayman do, you ask? All I know is that it had something to do with a plunger. I recall this being fair to control with analog sticks, but on PC it's just weird. You see, Rayman doesn't seem to actually be falling. You have to push your mouse forwards to create a decline in altitude. Yet the whole time it's fighting with you to stay in a level position. This is the case for other ports of the game too, but it's especially awkward with a mouse. Your success also depends on how much space you have on your desk. It's not that I dislike this minigame, it's fine, but I don't like playing it on PC. 3 out of 5.
The timer was counting up, it wasn't counting down from 140. Okay. Oh, this one does not work any better with motion controls. The same issue Frame had with his mouse also happens here, but with the Wii remote? And I don't know if I can explain it any better than that. I had to hold the Wiimote almost completely downward to even start moving Rayman in the right direction, and then holding the nunchuck control stick upwards to accelerate also moves Rayman upwards? This isn't an optional thing either. You have to speed up whenever possible to reach the timer target, which, yeah, why does that count up instead of down? What a weird minigame, but it's at least a nice shake-up from the usual final minigame for each day, I suppose. Sorry, I can really only give this one a 2 out of 5. Also, I have no idea why there's a sound effect from iMovie at the start here, but I can't help but find that really funny.
Whoa, a level break minigame that isn't a race or a shooting game? What's happening? I like this one a lot. Falling through the rings quickly isn't a revolutionary minigame idea, but it's one that I think is pretty well executed here. It goes on maybe a little bit too long, but otherwise it's good fun and is hard enough to keep it engaging for its slightly longer than needed runtime. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies can't herd. Well, here's a game designed for toddlers. Use your crosshair to match the cows, the pigs, and sheep. Just be sure not to mix them together or you'll have to start the pattern over. The silence of grouping them together with the roaring applause after doing so honestly makes this pretty satisfying. This might be the only minigame that has nothing to do with Rayman or Rabbids. Not a bad game, really. I enjoy it. 5 out of 5.
I swear there's a minigame exactly like this in Mario Party DS, but hey, if it works, it works. There's a fun bit of risk or reward to this game. Sometimes drawing around smaller groups of animals can work out in the end, but it's also fun to let the rink fill up with tons of them, then try to go for a high score all at once. The drawing continues to be pretty precise. I'm guessing these kinds of minigames are the most fun with a Wiimote or mouse. Don't care either way. This is a 5 out of 5.
Pretty fun matching game with precision aiming thrown in for good measure. I can't say I love this minigame, but I do get a kick out of it. And saving up a big batch of one animal to take out 10 or 12 in one go is pretty satisfying. Goes on way too long though, and becomes a bit mindless by the end. Still good variety in gameplay, and this is something we haven't really had before. Clearly a last minute addition though. It's alright. 3 out of 5.
Bunnies Don't Milk Cows Part 2. Oh my lord, it was bad enough the first time. Now you just have to press a button to finish? Wow, nice 10-second programming challenge this minigame was. 0 out of 5.
You've gotta be kidding me. Of all the minigames to bring back, they chose this one? And it requires aiming the Wiimote and pressing a button after filling each bucket now? Okay, look, I understand the concept here, but even Nintendo's own 1-2 Switch understood how to make this concept work without requiring a strict time limit or frivolous controller waggling. I tried doing this so many ways, but nothing worked. I even noticed this time around that despite my constant swinging, the cow's milking speed will just randomly slow down sometimes. And I know it's not my emulator because I've been able to use pinpoint precision and score well in the waggling minigames no problem this whole time. The extra steps do nothing here but make the overall game worse. They're not intuitive, they don't make sense within the context of the game, and they force you to start and stop waggling with no downtime. Whew. I'm skipping this one too. Please let the next one be better. 0 out of 5.
I gave the previous version of this a 1 out of 5, but I can't in good faith do that again when this is one of the most wasteful examples of a repeating minigame. It's ridiculous. And stop trying to force the Xbox's weird prelude to the Kinect. I'm not pretending to milk a cow in front of my grandma. 0 out of 5.
Bunnies Are Heartless with Pigs Part 2. I'm not sure what makes this one any different from the first part. The map is exactly the same, no new gimmicks to consider. You get 5 more seconds to complete it this time. My guess is there are more hidden Rabbids to trigger. It's no more interesting to do this the second time. 2 out of 5.
Oh, for the love of... Okay, so I did try just a little more dolphin fiddling for this one, but I still couldn't get a simulation of the Wiimote sounds. I was getting concerned here because I can only skip one minigame per day, and yet somehow, with just enough trial and error, I managed to finish a round with no sound hints at all. Oh my gosh, we're cracked. Guys, we did it! We did it! We're free! I don't have to milk cows! I still won't rank this one, it wouldn't be fair to, but it is kind of funny you can technically brute force your way through this one and skip the controller gimmick altogether. Unranked.
I still very much like this premise on account of it being hilarious and somewhat fun. That maintains the case here, but of all the minigames to repeat, the cow milking one and then this, it's a bit tiresome now. Since on the Xbox version you just have to use guesswork, it is a little annoying being lumbered with it again. I do still like it and think it's hilarious though. 3 out of 5.
Bunnies Just Wanna Have Fun Part 2. I gave the first one a 0 out of 5. This one is actually rather fast-paced, so I don't mind it. Kinda fun. Nothing new or original here though, but you kinda expect that at this point. I'll take this opportunity to say that I actually prefer this version of the song over Cyndi Lauper's. If I weren't calling this rabified, I'd say this feels more like a traditional dance mix of the song. 2 out of 5.
Oh, good. I was starting to worry that bunnies didn't want to have fun anymore. Ugh, more weird beat switching, more occasional weirdness with the nunchuck, more of this stupid song cover. I mean, yeah, I finished it first try, but I also finished college and I can't say anything came from either of these achievements, so is it really worth bragging about? I'm sorry, this day just kinda stinks overall. I am very much ready to move on. 3 out of 5.
Mildly more enjoyable than the last batch of these rhythm games, but I'm still not a fan at all. I do like that they get a bit harder, while the input timing is way off on this version anyway, at least it's not as boring like this. Now might be a good time to mention that I almost always choose these levels to skip when playing through the game. 2 out of 5.
Bunnies Don't Like Being Disturbed at Night. Yeah, don't test me with the kamikazes. And there goes our comic relief character. Ooh, look at this guy. I like how this UFO brings it to life almost like a Frankenstein monster. These robots are called the bipods. I'll save further discussion for them on a future minigame. I will say it feels underwhelming to take them down by ricocheting their rockets, much as we did Pink earlier. that ends up being the only real takedown method for all the bosses in this game. The big boys on campus. I think the developers did a lot of good work here, making sure this existing location feels fleshed out and not like a simple rehash. What the heck? Yeah, you want to try that again? 4 out of 5.
Oh, finally. Actual gameplay. I have never been happier to see an FPS level. And this is another nicely framed stage. Great introduction to the bipod robots, cool angles and set pieces. I thought this bit where Rayman gets really close to the bipod was cool, and lots of burrowing Rabbids to deal with. Huh, it just occurred to me. The Rabbids are burrowing. This might be the most rabbit-like thing they ever do. Neat. 4 out of 5.
The formula of shooting Rabbids could get a bit stale by this point, but luckily this level introduces new enemies, takes place in a nice environment, and keeps the routine fresh. I'm far from saying it's the best one, but I do like it quite a lot. I don't have a ton else to say on this one that hasn't been covered really. I just quite like it, otherwise I'm mostly indifferent. 3 out of 5.
Bunnies don't sleep well. Sleep? In this economy? Well, for this minigame, you navigate a sleepy bunny around some spoopy ghosts. I know using the word spoopy in 2026, but I mean, just look at these guys. Could you describe these better with another word? The borders are also ghosts, so you'll have to avoid that too. Be constantly moving or you'll lose rather quickly. I like how this, among some other minigames, are essentially rendered in 2D, attributing to a more cartoon-like quality. Probably made it an easier choice for the 2007 Rabbids DS platformer, which also has this minigame. It's pretty fun with the touchscreen. Here, 4 out of 5.
I had to redo this one way more times than I'd like to admit. The ghosts move in the exact same way every time too, so honestly, I just chalk it up to my terrible pattern recognition. I kept failing at the last second too, adding insult to my own injury multiple times. Well, at least the presentation's nice. We don't get to see 2D minigames that often, so I always appreciate the art when we do. Cute touch with the lullaby music as well. In an alternate dimension, this would probably have Rabbids singing instead. Very grateful they didn't think to do that here. 3 out of 5.
Yeah, I can get on board with this one. A pretty fun 2D game where you've just got to avoid some moving obstacles. It's far from revolutionary, but a lot of fun and can get pretty hectic within a few seconds. I actually struggled a bit with this when I played it recently. On an Xbox controller it is pretty fun to play, but I do think it would be more fun with a mouse or a Wiimote. Still, it's getting a 4 out of 5.
Bunnies rarely leave their burrows, Part 2. Yep, once again an existing minigame with negligible changes. Still a fun one, but now you have to take extra caution because pigs are coming out from the burrows. This feels a lot like those frog Rabbids in the toilet game. It doesn't add much and is arguably less entertaining than before. 3 out of 5.
Yep, this one's pretty much still the same. Kind of sucks that a lot of these round 2s just add one extra obstacle, and that's the only change. Just like last time, I barely found myself aiming for the upper rabbit holes. There's really no point when you can just focus on the lower 2. I guess the skill ceiling is a little higher because of the pigs, but you only lose 5 points if you hit one, so I barely felt punished for the occasional mess up. 3 out of 5.
Whack-A-Mole Volume 2. It's a decent minigame to get a second part of, to be honest. I'd love 75 unique minigames, obviously, but I won't say no to this. It's hardly any different though. Not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm not too fussed about it. 3 out of 5.
Bunnies Don't Like Bats, Part 2. Now as you collect the pigs, there are some big wah who will come and steal them. They're not very fast, so you can easily grab another pig in return. I think the higher stakes make this particular minigame more enjoyable, but only somewhat. 3 out of 5.
Another round 2 with only one change, and that's the scripted Rabbid who only gets the chance to steal one pig from your corral if you play fast enough. Yeah, I'm gonna rank this the same as the last one. I still liked it, but the pirate thieves don't really add much. 4 out of 5.
Good fun. Collecting pigs, returning pigs, pigs get stolen, steal pigs back. Remember about that speed power-up after a few more failed attempts? It's a good minigame, and one that feels like a proper fleshed out bit of gameplay, so I'm more than happy to get a second round of this. 3 out of 5.
Bunnies Get a Kick Out of Hip Hop, Part 2. For the first time in this playthrough, I forgot to complete a minigame, and it was this one. The rhythm concept is completely exhausted at this point as a returning player. If you want to complete a minigame that you missed, you'll have to sit on your cell toilet between the days. I don't get it either. Dude has a bed, doesn't he? Anyways, here's another rhythm minigame with synchronization issues. I'll get into the groove, line it up perfectly, and it just doesn't match. Whatever, 1 out of 5.
This one starts out fine enough, but slowly devolves into a poor attempt at rabbit rapping. Yup, this is a Parappa knockoff now, and not a very good one. I know we've already seen this song before, but there weren't nearly as many offbeats to deal with back then. By the end, I was really struggling to get any enjoyment out of this. The dancing minigames are starting to wear on me, and I'm their biggest advocate. They really needed some more music tracks to work with if we're supposed to play one of them on every floor. 2 out of 5.
One of the worst instances of this minigame. You know my thoughts, I don't like these. Ugh. 0 out of 5.
Bunnies help tame the Wild West. This happens to be the same map that we played in the first FPS minigame, and the first half of it follows the exact same path. I noticed certain windows can be broken, that's interesting. Alright, I'll address the elephant in the room. There's a giant bipod in the distance. Dang, does that thing make me feel tiny. Its menacing red eye is the only remaining parallel to the Rabbid mechas that once had a big role in this game. For other appearances, one is a boss in the GBA game, and a bunch show up at the end of Travel in Time for some reason. What about our bipod friend? It only exists here and kind of in the Nintendo DS game where you can traditionally fight some version of it. You can also pilot one as a floating head which the game calls Rayman gear for some reason. Can you imagine fighting these bipods on foot without ricocheting rockets? That's what you would do in the prototype. In fact, you would climb inside and destroy it from the interior. These kinds of dramatic scenes aren't uncommon in other Rayman games, making the poor bipod's reduction to a rail shooter feel undeserved.
Oh, we got him! That was it? Those are really cool. I really like those robot designs.
About the minigame? I mean, what else to say beyond the bipod? The spectacle alone kinda sells it, though if it weren't for that, I think this would be a pretty average level at best. This one's gonna be hard to rank, but I'm feeling 4 out of 5.
Back in the West yet again, but fortunately we have some unique twists to keep things interesting. This level is heightened a lot by the visual details, the jumping between rooftops, and of course the giant bipod taking center stage. That said though, having such a large robot on screen just has me thinking of Megaleg from Super Mario Galaxy. Can't believe Bowser Jr. ripped off the Rabbids' best work. 4 out of 5.
A lot of fun shooting in this one. I think maybe the shooting minigames are better in the second half of the game. Makes sense really, since they up the ante with enemies and attack patterns with mini-bosses and rockets each time. It's a fun minigame, I like it. Very much still serving as the next version of the plunger game, so not a lot else to add that I haven't already said, but it's good. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies don't understand bowling. My favorite Rabbids aura is when they're intensely excited about any ruthless activities. God, the minions took a lot of notes from these guys, didn't they? Anyways, toss a barrel down this railroad track. You've got 2 chances to reach a total of 150 points. I do like how they tried to replicate Wii motion controls here by having you flick the mouse upwards. Though like many of these attempts in the game, it is a bit awkward, and once again success depends on how much desk space you have. I do think this is one of the better minigames. The premise is simple and the slapstick humor works. 5 out of 5.
Okay, the ragdoll physics kind of make up for it. Revenge is a dish best served bold. I like the ragdoll physics for the Rabbids as they slowly plummet to their doom. Also love the little detail of any remaining Rabbids hula dancing at you if you miss them. This would be a 5 out of 5 minigame if you could throw the barrel backwards. If you know, you know. 4 out of 5.
Fantastic idea for a minigame. Bowling down the Rabbids. I love it. In concept. In gameplay, it just doesn't work for me. It could be an Xbox thing, but it was basically a case of just throwing the barrel and hoping for the best because nothing I did actually affected its movement. I got enough points to pass after 3 or 4 attempts, but that was dumb luck. Not much of a game in my experience. Quite funny though. 2 out of 5.
Bunnies Can't Slide Part 2. Oh, not this one again. Well, to be honest, The setup is infinitely better this time around. Just be the closest for the final round. This proved to me that the minigame isn't bad, it's just the way it was initially presented was. 4 out of 5.
Oh no, I jinxed it! This is gonna suck. Wait, it's a best of 3 rounds? And there's obstacles and holes in the ice to trip up the CPUs? Where the heck was this strategizing in the previous version? I was actually getting invested in this one. Still, it's extremely easy to miss the distance target when you're busy accounting for everything else going on. Ends up being more frustrating than fun. Ugh, I hate to skip this one again, but the game's on thin ice now. 2 out of 5.
Yeah, this is a much better iteration of the curling minigame. Actually a whole lot of fun. Instead of 3 separate rounds, this one has one final goal, making each round's change of frame a lot more compelling and unpredictable. I do think you have more control over it this time too. It feels a lot less like random guesswork. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies are not ostriches. Remember bunnies can't fly? Here's a humorous continuation of the story, where Rayman now has to collect all the Super Rabbids after their very successful launch. Unearth 10 of them within a minute while avoiding the curious Professor Barranco below. Brain damage. 5 out of 5.
Wow,
They're clean again. Yeah, oh boy.
actual continuity from another minigame. I actually kinda love that detail. Although this does confirm that there's more than one Super Bunny. Well, I guess fun isn't free, seeing as Rayman has to do the cleanup job after launching all those Super Bunnies down here, which would be fine except for this one straggler that just wants to escape the desert, thinks you're an Uber, needs a hug, I don't know. At the very least, you can throw him if he gets in the way, which causes that great tremolo effect if you spin him while letting go. Have to say, the sound effect details in this game are surprisingly high effort. The most annoying part of it is trying to aim the UFO while moving if you're trying to go quickly. Still pretty fun though. 3 out of 5.
This one's pretty fun, but I've got to say it's frustrating and not in the fun way. Lining up the UFO with the Rabbids is admittedly part of the challenge, but it's not as forgiving as you'd hope, and when you miss, there's a good chance a Rabbid you're not meant to pick up will get in the way. It's okay. With a few tweaks, I'd like it a lot more, but it's definitely still a fun one as it stands. 3 out of 5.
Bonino's Danza la Bamba Part 2. Bonino's Danza la Bamba Part 2. It's fine. I have nothing else to add. 3 out of 5.
Finally! Another dancing minigame with a beat map that mostly makes sense. 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I got nothing. 1 out of 5.
Oh, I unlocked the bunny costume. It's an unwritten rule to wear the bunny costume when you unlock it in this game.
Says who?
Says me. Race, good, like bunnies. Backwards title, backwards race. Yeah, it's just a reversed version of Bunnies Like a Good Race, but there's no competition this time, only traffic. Weird how they put this minigame here just after our most recent race, which also took place in the cemetery environment. Feels repetitive to do it again so soon, even if backwards. 3 out of 5.
The title for this one reads like a YouTube poop, and I love it for that. I agree with Frame though, it feels like we were just here. Maybe this minigame would have been better placed towards the end as a subversion? Well, except for a somewhat strict time limit, I enjoyed this one a lot. Dodging the oncoming traffic is pretty fun, as are the sound effects for the Rabbids as they fly past you. 4 out of 5.
Really nice way of updating the race formula. Going through a track backwards could feel like a cop-out, but not reversing the other races turns them into obstacles, and I think I love it for that. It's still quite short and snappy, so it doesn't give you enough time to get fed up with it. Good level in my opinion, and I'm glad to see it's not just a standard race again. 4 out of 5.
Aw, look at that! The Rabbids are throwing hearts in the arena.
We were in slavery. Nothing is perfect.
Bunnies are slow to react Part 3. Oh, what's that? We're doing Part 3s now? Well, this particular minigame has proved to be somewhat entertaining, so I guess I don't mind. Now, unless you want me to give a thorough analysis on the level design, which you probably don't, I'll just say, yeah, it's fine. 3 out of 5.
Wow, they really like this maze, huh? I guess this one is alright. Not much different than the previous maze, but it's a new layout at least. I just barely made the target time after about 3 tries because the ball still has a sticking problem. The most fun I had here was cutting off the opening cutscene by accident. 3 out of 5.
A third one of these? Yeah, I'll take it. I love these ones. Not much more to say that we haven't all covered twice already though. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies Can't Jump Part 2. Okay, I see what they were going for here. It's a little disorienting, but interesting. Rotate the mouse to spin the rope, while simultaneously making Rayman jump over it. Takes some time to wrap your head around. I would say there's more value in this minigame than the first part, though. You only need 1,000 points this time instead of 3,000, so it's pretty forgiving in that aspect. Didn't hate this, didn't like it either. 2 out of 5.
Oh, fantastic. This one again? And now we have to strategically spin the Wiimote at a certain speed and flick the nunchuck to jump? This takes some serious levels of coordination that I do not have, and the score threshold is surprisingly high considering we haven't played this minigame since the second day. How are they expecting actual children to figure this out? The nunchuck is still as inconsistent as ever, and now you have to rotate the Wii Remote at a very specific speed to keep it from stopping and messing up your flow. I promise you, I really tried on this one, but I just had to move on at some point. 0 out of 5.
I didn't like it before, and I most certainly don't like it now. I think this one is worse because it's a little harder. I'm not saying a game is bad for being difficult, but when the core gameplay mechanic is as flawed as this, at least on the Xbox port, then extra difficulty is nothing but a nightmare. I'm not a fan. 0 out of 5.
Bunnies Have No Memory Part 2. I feel like this was better as a one-off. Could say that about many of these Part 2s, I guess. Sergey looks a bit out of place, and I think that was intentional, but it leans more on being kinda awkward. Case in point, there's one extra character now, though the required score remains the same. The difficulty boost is negligible. 3 out of 5.
I like that Segway keeps showing up in these minigames lately. Seems he's just happy to be included at this point. Pretty funny that he doesn't even fit in frame here, but he still gets the participation trophy in my book. We should all aspire to be more like Stairway. Sadly, his inclusion doesn't actually do that much for the minigame, but I already liked this one quite a bit, so more of it is just fine by me. I also like how the battery on the camera acts as your timer for this minigame. I didn't notice it before, but I did get close to running it out a few times this round. Nice touch. 4 out of 5.
Hey look, I like a memory game like this. It's a little more complicated than the last one because there are more Rabbids to remember the sequence of. I wouldn't say it's any harder though. It's good fun, and maybe goes on a little bit too long to reach the necessary score. 3 out of 5.
Deep Down Bunnies or Rockers Part 2. Alright, decent challenge this time around. Seemed like the beats were synchronized. I just wish I didn't have to hear the Rabbids screaming. You might think I just don't like this style of music. No, I can get into rougher vocals, but it needs some kind of substance to it. I mean, this is just a bunch of incoherent blabbering. I guess it's supposed to be funny? I'm not laughing. 3 out of 5. That's been a real common ranking lately. I don't know, a lot of these later minigames, especially the Part 2s, they're just passable at best.
This was okay, I guess, but some of the patterns are so fast that I could just rapidly shake the nunchuck a few times and it counted basically every note. Really feeling the lack of music tracks now. 3 out of 5.
Alright, this one, while well and truly ingrained in my mind as my least favourite type of game, is actually quite fun. I enjoyed this a bit more. Would I still skip it if it wasn't part of a video that demands it? Yeah, obviously I would, but as it stands, this is one of the least offensive ones. 2 out of 5.
Bunnies sometimes recycle the scenery from other games. Here we have a good mix-up of everything we've learned so far. By this point, every enemy type has been introduced, and as a result, nothing is used sparingly anymore. It's all about pushing up the intensity. Combined with the aesthetics and the fact that it's a rail shooter, I got a strong House of the Dead vibe here. There's so much action going on that I'm not really thinking about how I've visited this location numerous times already. The music selection for this minigame is top-notch, featuring the best action tracks in the game, plus that haunted cemetery theme. Oh, it's so good. One thing to note is the bat statues, which have existed across the cemetery games. You can actually shoot these down piece by piece, which often uncovers a secret power-up or points box. I always figured these statues were some kind of gargoyle representation, but on second thought, they actually look a bit like the Nurgles. This is their domain, presumably. So perhaps this was a connection to them at some point, but hard to say. We still know pretty much nothing about these characters. Clark comes in to save the day, but nah. How about that final battle where you take down 3 bipods at once? Seeing them all lined up against the player like that? Actually quite intimidating. 5 out of 5.
Even though I had none of the context for said reused assets, which are apparently from a King Kong game of all things.
While editing this video, I thought of something I wanted to mention. The team had freshly come off of developing that King Kong game, and I bet the single reason for this existing is because they thought, how cool would it be to shoot Rabbids in those King Kong environments? If you think about it from their point of view, that would have been pretty funny. I know the Rayman 4 prototype was also set up to use some of its assets, but I still believe in the chance that this was a real conversation they had.
I still liked this one quite a lot. Another long stage, which I think is worse for me than the others since they don't have to hold up a remote the whole time, but despite that, the atmosphere makes it worth sitting through. I do feel a little bad for Super Bunny though. I had no idea he was trying to help, and I accidentally crushed him with a rock. Last time we see him too, I think, so sorry about that. 5 out of 5, Rip Clark.
Love the scenery here, love the Rabbids and the chaos here as well, and I love the route you take. This might just be the best plunger shooting game in my opinion. This, as expected this late in the game, ramps up the chaos and Rabbid numbers by a lot. I actually struggled to beat this one last time I played it. I think I only had 2 health points left. Good. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies are ticklish! I really like this one. Memorize the layout of this rabbit's brain, and then once the images vanish, press the brain points in the order that they appear on the left. Simple, but fun. I like how confused the rabbit seems. He's a little ugly though. Sorry, little ugly fella. 5 out of 5.
Yet another terribly instructive minigame, but pretty fun when you get the hang of it. Definitely a strange concept, but different enough for a memory game, I suppose. I think this would have been a little more fun if we hadn't literally just played another memory game in the previous day. Weird visuals too. This is only slightly better than the teeth worms. I'll still be fair though, and give it a 4 out of 5.
Perhaps this game goes on a little too long, but that's really my only gripe with it. Memory-based outings are always fun in party games, and this one, with some of the weirdest visuals yet, is a lot of fun. Just remember 4 quadrants of the rabbit's brain and then poke him in the correct ones, obviously. What else would you be doing in a game rated 7 and up? 4 out of 5.
Bunnies Don't Use Toothpaste, Part 2. Nobody was asking for this. Par the course for this game altogether, but... oh, nice. Intoxication by bad breath. They found a way to make it even grosser. Why am I not surprised? I'm playing this on my PC with a 32-inch monitor just 1.5 meters in front of me, which was an immersive experience. The challenge here is the disgust factor, I guess. Doesn't seem any harder than before. Yeah, the image distorts, whatever. 1 less star than its previous iteration. 2 out of 5.
You gotta be kidding me, I was just talking about these stupid things. Great, more teeth worm grabbing, and the only difference here is a visual distortion filter from bad breath. Yeah, I'm sorry, what are we even doing here? This isn't harder or more interesting, it's just gross out on top of more gross out. 2 out of 5, moving on.
Grim, off-putting, outstays its welcome, sure, but also funny, chaotic, and a lot of fun to actually play. I'm a fan of this minigame. I'm not sure it needed a second part though, and it does go on a bit too long, but still it's an enjoyable one. And to be enjoying the part 2s this late in the game, you know, I really can't complain. 3 out of 5.
Bunnies Can't Fly, Part 2. Notice how the introduction is ever so slightly changed this time, now with a rabbit screaming at Clark's belt. Celebrity worship runs deep in rabbit culture. Anyways, this minigame is the same, but this time you can kick Clark's ass mid-air for extended distance. Like many of these, it's little more than a repeat, but at least this comes from one of the good original minigames. 3 out of 5.
So the only difference here in this sequel minigame is 1 extra shake when Super Bunny is mid-air? Am I expecting too much? Is it bad that I'm wishing for a little more substance from my funny rabbit-flinging minigame? Blarg, we need something new thrown into the mix and soon. 3 out of 5, but only barely.
Oh hey, this one again? Yeah, that's alright, I'll take it. I think I gave it a 5 last time, so I'm dropping it down to a 4 here simply because it feels like a bit of a wasted repeat. But hey, it's still a lot of fun in my eyes.
Bunnies Are Raving Mad, Part 2. This is not technically, but pretty much the final rhythm minigame. Provides a decent challenge, quite relentless actually. From what I can tell, this one does sync with the music properly, so someone actually cared to make this one interesting, it seems. During subsequent replays of this game, usually this is the only rhythm minigame that I deliberately load up a second time. Butcher's DJ goes hard. 5 out of 5.
Well, it took way too many sequel minigames, but we finally have what I consider to be the best dancing minigame. And I think the reason why is because there's no lyrics. It's just rave music, so it keeps moving pretty quick with no time for random change-ups. Good patterns, good beat, everything works. Guess some genres are just better suited for this kind of minigame than others. So long, Rave Man. I'll miss ya. 5 out of 5.
Oh good lord, I enjoyed one of these? What have I become? This was chaotic and fun, I don't know what to tell you. It never slows down enough to annoy me or get tedious, so I have to say that this is not only the best of the rhythm minigames, but actually a damn fun one altogether. 4 out of 5.
The transformation is complete. Rayman become Rabbids. Bunnies like a good cowboy race. The theming's pretty fun. Technically we haven't seen this area of the Wild West yet. It's nice to race somewhere new, though by this point I feel like the entire concept's been tired out. I imagine nobody at Ubisoft really cared at this point because you've played most of the game anyways. What a sad outlook on game design. Although in this case it was likely more to do with time constraints. I'm also full admittedly just making this scenario up in my head, but I mean it seems kinda likely, don't you think? Players might start asking, is this game almost over? And that's never something you want to hear, especially while riding a warthog. 3 out of 5.
Am I the only one who thought this was a little short? At least compared to the other racetracks, this one is basically just a loop with not much else. Still, the racing is as fun as ever, and it's nice to see the Wild West again. A nice send-off to one of my favorite minigames. Oh, yeah, that's right. We're in the home stretch, aren't we? Well, I'm interested to see what the final day has in store for us, but for now, I'm giving this minigame a 4 out of 5.
The final race not being a repeated environment is a nice touch. I really thought we'd have a reversed beach race or something, but no, this Wild West location is nice to race around in. I'm a big fan of figure 8 racetracks where a jump has you sort of going back on yourself briefly. Makes for a lot of chaos if you're far enough in front of another racer and you go headlong into each other. Fun race, and I like it a lot. 4 out of 5.
Bunnies can only fly downwards? Hold on a second. This was one of the day's final challenges. And where's the part 2? Is this really the identical minigame thrown in here a second time? Except with the word can in the title? And bunny costume? I have had to read "and bunny costume" maybe 15 times in a loud voice in this apartment building. And I'm hoping I'm not driving my neighbors insane. By looking at them side to side, the map is identical. The hoops you fly through are placed elsewhere, but not by a great margin. You're still following the same path as before, generally. I did notice a few Rabbids shenanigans going on in the background, but that's all you really get for new content here. I saw one person online remark about how this minigame's one of the hardest to get a perfect score in, though that's related to the separate score mode. 2 out of 5.
Well, I was worried about the final day having a third milking minigame or something, but it looks like Daisy just kicked the bucket. I didn't really enjoy this one more or less than last time. There's a few more distractions and the course is a little tougher, but I'm accustomed to the weird controls by this point. Still kind of cool to go flying one more time. 3 out of 5.
This again? That's annoying. I have no other input really. It's still fun. 3 out of 5.
Bunnies have natural rhythm, part 2. Sergey won't shut the hell up and dances around like a pathetic moron, which temporarily stuns Rayman if he makes contact. Sergey's in a rush to turn off all your radios, which is an annoyance more than anything. I don't care for them doing this with the character. In fact, Sergey feels so out of place in most minigames. Not that it had to be this way, but I think the Rabbids game as it was shipped just didn't leave much room for him to be a threatening antagonist anyways. No wonder they retired him after this game. Although he's still on the box art of Rabbids 2 for some reason, climbing the Eiffel Tower. Who knows why. 1 out of 5.
Oh good, Sarcophagus is back. And this is probably his worst appearance. Come on, man, we were buddies. We had a thing going here. I guess there's at least a little added strategy to this round 2. I learned pretty quickly that I could distract San Diego by activating a nearby radio and letting him run after that as a decoy. After that, the minigame was over before I knew it. Friendship ended with Segment. Now Clark is my best friend. No, wait, I dropped a rock on Clark, shoot. Maybe next time, consider not running over your friends. 3 out of 5.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, this next minigame is another 360 exclusive.
Absolutely the not. This is a rock, paper, scissors minigame that just won't end. Another of the Xbox 360 exclusive games, so only I was subjected to this, meaning I have full authority and cannot be argued with when I say that this is hands down the worst minigame in all of Rayman Raving Rabbids. It is utterly diabolical. You have to keep an eye out and see what the enemy Rabbids will throw, rock, paper or scissors, and then you have a split second to press A, X or Y to pick the correct option to win each round. Sounds like it could be fun, except the time you have to choose is so minimal that even getting your thumb on the right button in time is tough. At least the button registers when you press it, right? Nope, and you have to do it 20 times in a row without missing one. Insane, not fun at all, it barely works and I hate it with a burning passion. I need to lie down. 0 out of 5.
Bunnies Like to Stuff Themselves Part 2. Of course, another minigame that doesn't need a second round. Now the images you scribble over can randomly vanish and reappear. That's great. They were really rushing this together by the end, weren't they? 1 out of 5.
I can see what they were going for here, but if they wanted the drawing to be more of a challenge, couldn't they just have had it slowly fade out instead of flashing? Kind of removes the difficulty, I think. The devs seem to be running out of steam and fast. 2 out of 5.
Good enough minigame that I quite liked the first time. I don't care for it having a sequel, but I'm not heartbroken at it. I always have a good time. The added challenge to this second part was a bit pointless though. Very much a case of them realising they hadn't hit the minigame quota and having 2 weeks left to release the game. 3 out of 5.
Bunnies Are Fantastic Dancers Part 3. I did say the last rhythm minigame was the last one, but then you have this, and I just don't think it needs to exist. I know consistency's sake and everything, but did we really need to run through this song for a third time? Synchronization with the beat is, once again, not accurate for certain parts. It's the drums, then the guitar, the piano, it's just a mess.
It's a mess!
At least I won this golden cow. Don't tell Moses. 1 out of 5.
One more round of surfing in the USA and it's fine. A few weird beat patterns here and there, but otherwise perfectly playable. Dang, we all really liked the previous one. Too bad that couldn't have been the finale for the dancing minigames. Well, at least what we got is a solid 3 out of 5.
A third time? 0 out of 5.
Bunnies aren't scared of the dark. So, does Rayman Raving Rabbids end on a high note with this last minigame? Honestly, we've gotten to a point where I'm finding it hard to enjoy anything here. It would take quite a challenge to make this conclusion feel like it was worth slugging through all those part 2s. What I can say is this minigame does try to be unique. You're infiltrating a rabbit bunker, which is something that the Rayman 4 prototype was no stranger to. Did I say we've met all the characters yet? Traditional characters, yes, but there are a few exclusive variants here, like the Rabbid robots, which are a little more than a retexture. Points for effort, I guess. Bizarre soundtrack choice for this one, opting for Brazilian music. No, literally, that's the name of the track. Shatters the atmosphere for what should be a creepy level by all intents and purposes. Pink is scurrying about. Rabbids are rolling in giant transparent balls. There are even explodey balls. I just wouldn't expect easy listening music to play here. Although I do remember once someone compared this place to the offices of Google and... You know what? Yeah, never mind, it makes sense. In my Rabbids DS video, I said this elevator theme wasn't present in the final game, but I'm now coming to find that was actually false. Is this the only time it plays? Leading up to the final pink boss fight, I noticed these frozen Rabbids in a series of containment chambers. They always looked a tad distorted to me. I asked around and Silverloid managed to get this screenshot, which shows they're actually just robot Rabbids. Maybe this is the factory where they make them? Just as you enter the room with Pink, the music shuts off. Admittedly, it feels quite tense, though I can't shake this bittersweet feeling. Probably from realizing that I won't have to play a series of part 3s now. The final battle is Rabbids jumping out from all vantage points, while you engage in the familiar game of ricocheting rockets until Pink is destroyed and, well, the rest is history. 3 out of 5. Could have been better, not the worst. Fairly disappointing is the final stage, especially as we already fought a giant bipod. If they wanted to top that, well, they didn't. Honestly, maybe that should have been the final level.
Pretty cool infiltration setting to close out the entire game, but what a weird couple of music choices. First, it's basically the Office theme from the movie Brazil, then it's classical, and then they try to go cinematic towards the end. Were they aiming for an elevator music vibe? I have no idea, but I at least enjoyed the atmosphere. It feels like the devs wanted to give us at least one nice, unique location for the final showdown. I want to give this a 5 out of 5, but there's just not enough here to justify this as the grand finale. 4 out of 5 it is.
A new environment for the final Rabbids shooting game and final minigame in the whole of Rayman Raving Rabbids. I'm glad. They could have done a cop-out level here, but here they saved a really cool environment for a level they must have predicted only 5% of players would make it to. It's fine. It's not the best one of these, but certainly good fun and a nice way to end the game in my opinion. 3 out of 5.
What kind of ending is that?
Yeah!